Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Economics or Finance Excellency batch. I know many of you were waiting for the videos for the last few days. Wasn't able to record and upload the videos as I was not well. So all those who have been regular, I know I've been getting lots of messages, but I updated on the YouTube also and Telegram also. I was not able to conduct the live batch of costing also, and I was not able to upload the videos. Still, right now also not 100% I would say, but still good enough to go for it, and might be the small videos, but we will keep uploading on the regular basis so that we are able to complete this batch on time. And don't worry about it, we will be completing this batch on time, right? So nothing as such to worry about. We are going at a good pace and we will be able to complete this whole batch in the month of March itself. Okay, so what we have been doing about, let's talk about that. We were discussing about the fiscal policy, that what is a fiscal policy. Fiscal policy are basically the policies made by the government regarding the money, right? So these are basically the control of money, the policies for that, and these are made by the government, right? So this is all what we have already discussed about, right? Made by the government. Okay, so the basic of the fiscal policy, that why there is a need, then we discussed about the objectives of the fiscal policy, then we discussed about the automatic stabilizers, that there are certain policies of the government which automatically adjust according to the position of recession or the inflation, according to the demand, so they automatically adjust, right? Then there are certain discretionary fiscal policies, that means there are certain discretionary actions by the government, right? Deliberate actions by the government. Now, the instruments of fiscal policy, that how the government uses the different policies. Now just try to understand the basic first, right? The broad framework, what the government is trying to do, why these need of the different instruments of the fiscal policy. The government says the main purpose of this creating the fiscal policies is to control the supply of money, right? Control doesn't mean that you have to contract the supply. That means you have to reduce the supply. It doesn't mean only the reduction. It might be reduction, it might be the increase in the supply of money, right? So what is the impact of that? Control the supply of money. The impact is on the disposable income of people, right? Disposable income of people. That means if you are reducing the supply of money from the economy, the people will have less of disposable income in hand, right? Because the money supply is reduced in the economy. Let's take a very simple example, sir. During the monetization part, what happened, sir? During the monetization part, the supply of the money was very less in the economy, and as a result, the people had less money in the hand, right? Now, what is the impact if you will have less money in hand? Sir, the demand of the goods will be less. You will be demanding less of the products with that less money. So that means this disposable income will be impacting what? This will be impacting your aggregate demand, right? This will impact your aggregate demand. Now, when one thing is impacting the aggregate demand, what will be the impact of that? Sir, higher the demand, higher will be the prices. Lower the demand, lower will be the prices. That means this aggregate demand is going to impact the prices, right? And these prices are going to define whether we are going into the recession period or the inflation period. If the prices are too high, then we say that we are going through the inflation period, and if the prices are too low, the demand is low, the prices are low, then we say we are going through the recession period. And the different policies, the different fiscal policies of the government, they are prepared to correct these situations. Because for any economy, neither the recession is good nor the inflation is good, right? So that is the main purpose of defining the various fiscal policies or using the various instruments of the fiscal policy, right? Let's see what are the various instruments of fiscal policy. The first instrument is the taxes. What is the first instrument? That is taxes. He says the taxes determine the disposable income available with the household and the firms for spending. Obviously, sir, if you have lots higher taxes in the economy, then higher taxes will lead to lower disposable income, right? If you have more of taxes means less of disposable income. Less of disposable income. Less of disposable income means less of what? Less of aggregate demand. Less of aggregate demand means lowering of the prices, right? So when will this situation be applicable? When you need to lower the prices. When do you need to lower the prices? During the case of inflation. During inflation, what will the government do? During inflation, the government will increase the taxes so that the people have less of disposable income in hand. The less of disposable income means the aggregate demand will come down. And when the aggregate demand will come down, the prices, the higher prices which were prevailing during the inflation period, those prices will start falling down due to the lowering of demand, right? On the other hand, there can be a contrary situation also when the taxes are lowered. Lower taxes means high disposable income with the people. Lower taxes means high disposable income with the people, and high disposable income means increase in the aggregate demand, and increase in the aggregate demand means the increase in the prices. Now, when will this be applicable? This will be applicable during the period of recession. When there is a recession, at that time, what will government do? What is the situation during the recession? The demand is very less. Due to the low demand, the prices are very less. What will the government do? Government then reduce the taxes so that people have more money in hand. More money. If the people will have more money, then only they will be demanding more of the goods, right? And when they will be demanding more of the goods, the prices will start eventually increasing, right? And when the prices will increase, what will happen, sir? Economy will start coming out of the recession period. So that is the role of taxes here. That is how the taxes as an instrument are used. Instrument of fiscal policy. That is why the first line he says the taxes determine the disposable income available with the household and the firms for spending. The size of disposable income determines the aggregate demand. That is why I told this flow chart, right? That is why this flow chart, disposable income determines the aggregate demand. That is what he's saying, and the possible inflationary or the deflationary gaps. The tax rates are varied in accordance with the overall economic conditions with a view to establish the stability. That means the tax rates are varied according to the period of inflation or recession. Now, during the recession, what will happen? The taxes are reduced, thus increasing the disposable income of the firms and the households, which in turn leads to increase in aggregate demand and investment. Now, what will happen during the inflation? The reverse will happen during the inflation part. The taxes are increased to reduce the disposable income of the household and the firms, thereby controlling the consumption expenditure to reduce the prices of the inflation, right? The tax rates need to be set very carefully. The extremely low rates of tax can lead to the loss of the government revenue, while the high taxes can discourage the people from working hard. So this is very important. He says whatever the tax rates need to be, they need to be set very carefully, because if they are set very low, then there will be loss of the government revenue, which is again not good for the economy, because whatever the government earns through taxes, the government is ultimately spending on the people, right? The government is ultimately spending on the welfare of the economy. So if the tax rates are very low, that will lead to the loss of the government revenue. And if the tax rates are very high, then you will say why we should be earning that much, because we have to pay lots of taxes. Why we should be? We are satisfied with the low rate of earning and the lower taxes, right? So that will discourage people from working hard and earning the money. So that is why these tax rates hold a very important place in the economy, that how you are setting the tax rates, what are the tax rates, what are the income levels at which the different tax rates are applicable, right? Whenever the budget comes, the first and the foremost thing, which is one of the most important, discussion points, is the tax rates. What are the applicable tax rates for the next assessment year, isn't it? So that is why these taxes hold a very important, and this is the first instrument of the fiscal policy. And one thing you need to remember, that all the fiscal policies are aimed at what? Every fiscal policy is aimed at the social welfare, overall welfare of the economy. That is what I told you in the last lecture also, that each and every is fiscal policy is aimed at what? The economic welfare. That is important, right? Okay, the next one, the second instrument is the government expenditure. Government expenditure. Government will say we will do the expenditure to increase the aggregate demand in the economy. How? Incorporates the government expenditure towards consumption, investment, and the transfer payment. It includes the current expenditure. Current expenditure means the government will increase the salaries of the government employees. Now, what will that happen? What will be the impact of that? The impact will be when the salaries will increase, it is an expenditure for the government, right? And the government employee who is getting the salary, he will have more disposable income in hand. More disposable income means more aggregate demand. More aggregate demand means increase in prices, and this will be done during the recession period. To meet the day-to-day operations like the government staff salaries, they will increase this expenditure, they will increase the salaries. The next is the capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is investment in the infrastructure, capital equipment, public works. So government will start making the roads, right? Government will start investing in the other projects which are in for the public welfare, right? Like they might be constructing the dams, they might be constructing the bridges, they might be constructing the roads, which are everything for the benefit of the people. Now, what will be the impact of that? Sir, when these kind of investment projects are being undertaken, who is doing the expenditure? Government is doing the expenditure, right? But at the same time, the people who will be working in the construction of those roads, dams, bridges, whatever the work is being taken, those people will get the income from the government. That income will increase their disposable income, leading to increase in the aggregate demand. Transfer payments, we have already discussed about it. Transfer payments, you all know, it does not contribute to the GDP. That is the first thing that we studied in the national income, as it is a mere transfer of income from one group of people to another, right? Right. For example, during the COVID period, unemployment compensation was given. That is what? That is a transfer payment. But what is the result of that? That transfer payment is increasing the disposable income in the hands of the individuals, right, who is getting that transfer payment from the government. Now, it is an expenditure for the government. It is an expenditure for the government, but it will lead to increase in the disposable income in the hands of individuals, right? And the increase in the disposable income will lead to increase in the aggregate demand. And all these things will happen during the recession period. In the inflation period, the reverse will be applicable. The government will do less of transfer payments, the government will do less of investments, right? Okay, so this is what is given. During the recession, the government increases its expenditure or the spending, initiating the fresh public works like the construction of roads, irrigation facilities, etc. Such expenditure raises the level of employment and income, as it involves employment of labor and the purchase of many goods and services, right? So this in turn will increase the income of someone. So ultimately it will have the multiplier effect, which we have already studied about. Increased levels of income indirectly enhances the several economic activities through multiplier effect, and thus pushing the economy out of the recessionary period. The public spending during the recession is of two types. Pump pricing. Pump pricing is one-shot investment by the government. The government says that agriculture sector needs some investment, right? The government says, okay, we give you 100 crores for the development of agriculture sector, right? In one go, one shot government spending as a temporary fiscal stimulus, so as to revive the business confidence and stimulate the private investment. Government says we are giving you 100 crores. That is a one-time investment. For the education purpose, the government says that each and every child up to the age of 14 years must be getting the free education. Now, we have already studied about it that the private sector will not be that much motivated to invest in these kind of things. Now, government says we will give you 100 crore for this particular project. A very good example is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the government, in every budget, the government was allocating a particular budget. That is a one-shot investment to increase, to push that particular project, so that seeing the demand, seeing the popularity of that project, when, the government allocated the particular set of amount for the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and when the people were interested, a lot of people were interested in that, slowly the private players also came into the picture, because now the private players, what was the thinking behind that? The private players now got to know that this is getting a big picture, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. right? So they said this is a good time to increase the image of our business. Why not put some money into it under the CSR, that is the corporate social responsibility? So that is what the point here is. The government says we will give a one-shot money, and after that, if it becomes a success, then to stimulate the private investment. Another thing is, this is pump pricing. Another way is compensatory spending. Compensatory spending is, for example, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, again we may take. Let's say it is a 100 crore project. The private sector says we can contribute only up to the 40 crores. Right? In this project, the private sector says we can contribute only up to 40 crores. Now, what about the remaining 60 crores? The government says we will contribute that, right? That is compensatory. That is, the government spending is done with the intention to compensate for the deficiency in the private investment. Right? It is a 100 crore project. The private sector says we will invest 40 crores, but we can't do more than that. Right? The reasons you all know, we have already studied about it, that the private sector is mainly based on the motives of profits. Now, in anything that is not giving them the profits, they will not be that much motivated to invest in that. So the government says, okay, you invest 40 crore, the remaining 60 crore, that is the deficit, we will invest, that is compensatory spending. Right? So two things, pump pricing and compensatory spending. Now, during the inflation, the reverse will happen. The government expenditure will reduce, which lowers the income and thereby helps to reduce the excessive aggregate demand. Right? During the inflation, the reverse situation will happen. So that was the second instrument of fiscal policy. The third instrument is public debt. The public debt refers to the debt of the government or the government borrowing. Now, this is the government. We are talking about the government borrowing. Public debt means the government borrows the money in any form, right? What is the purpose? The government says, let's say you are the government, I am the people, right? You will say, give your money to me, give your money to me. You don't have the right to keep that money, right? Give that money to me so that I have less of money in hand for the spending, thereby reducing the aggregate demand. And the reverse, this will be applicable during what? During the inflation period, when you want to control that demand. The reverse will be applicable during the recession period. Now, he says the public debt may be internal, that is the borrowing from its own people within the country, and external, that is borrowing from outside sources, right? Now, he says the public debt may take the form of market loans, that is the issue of treasury bills, long-term capital bonds, as well as the government securities, which are actively traded in the debt market. So this is how they can take the money from people. They say, we will give you the government securities, we will give you some bonds, keep those bonds, give the money to us, right? They will raise the money by giving them the papers, right? The government securities can be there, bonds can be there, treasury bills can be there. So the government says, we need the money, take the money from the excess money from the people and give them the investment, right? People will say we are investing, but in short, they are not able to understand that what government is trying to do. Government is trying to take the money from them. So to control the aggregate demand in the economy. Another is small savings. It includes the public borrowings which are non-negotiable and are not bought and sold in the market. For example, PPC, NSC, Kisan Vikas Patra, etc. These are the small saving schemes. Right? All of you must be investing in the PPF and all that. So these are the small saving schemes. And through that, again, what the government is doing, the government, inculcates these habits in the people. They encourage people that you should be, whatever you are earning, you should be saving a small part of it and put it in the PPF. We will give you this much rate of interest, put it in the NSE, in the Kisan Vikas Patra, and we will give you rebate in the income tax and all those things, right? Not rebate, we will give you as deductions in the ATC deductions are there. What is that? That is encouraging people to invest the money and not have the higher disposable income, right? Otherwise, that will lead to the inflation then. So government says, let's take some part of the income of the people so that they do not have the huge disposable income. If the people will have everything as the disposable income and they are not saving anything, right, then what will happen? The demand will increase, the prices will increase, and the economy will go into the inflation mode. Now, during the recession, the government reduces the borrowings, the government repays the existing. Now, during the recession, what will happen? The government says, reduces the borrowings. Government says, let the people have more money, right? I will not take the money in the form of PPF, or we will not issue any bonds or the government securities. Let people have disposable money, right? Or they will repay the existing debt. They will ask people, take your money back, give the government security or the bonds back to us. Simple. So this increases the availability of money in the economy and increases the aggregate demand. The reverse happens during the inflation part, that government increases the borrowings, offers the new schemes at attractive rates of interest so that the people are lured into investing, right? People invest their money with the government. Such action wipes out the excess purchasing power in the economy, reducing the demand pull inflation. Right, the inflation which is pulled by demand, increase in the people have lots and lots of disposable income, that will lead to increase in the demand, right, aggregate demand, and increase in the aggregate demand will ultimately lead to increase in the prices, that will lead to the inflation, that is known as demand pull inflation. So that was the third one, that is the third instrument in that, right? So let's move on to the last instrument, that is the government budget. So every year the government comes up with a budget. What is a budget? The government budget tells us that in the upcoming year, what the government is going to do expenditure on and what are going to be the various sources of the revenue of the government, right? So government budget is a statement of revenue from the taxes and other sources and the expenditures made by the nation's government in a year. The budget can be a balanced budget where the revenue is equal to expenditure. Surplus budget where the revenue is going to be more than the expenditure, and the deficit budget, that is income, is going to be less than the expenditure. Income here means the revenue. The government says we'll have less of revenue. The balanced budget and surplus and the deficit budget. Now during recession, what will happen, sir? During recession, what will happen? The government proposes a deficit budget. Why? Because the government wants that people should be having more money as disposable income, right? During the recession, what will be there? Low taxes, high government expenditure, right? Low public debt. So what will happen, sir? If this is lower, this lower part, that means the sources of the revenue are lower, the expenditure part is higher, this is the revenue and this is the expenditure, right? So expenditure is higher, the revenue is less. So that is what during the recession, the government will propose the deficit budget. This has a positive net effect on the aggregate demand. Positive net effect means people will have more disposable income, leading to increase in the aggregate demand. Since the injections exceed the leakages, injection means the government expenditure is an injection, something that is going to boost the economy. So deficit budget may be financed through the past surpluses or the government borrowings. Now it says if there is going to be a deficit budget, how it is going to be financed? Either the government might be having the past surpluses, or the government may resort to borrowing. It may resort to foreign borrowing also, right? Not necessarily that they have to borrow from within the country, because within the country what they are trying to do, within the country they are trying to increase the demand, within the country they want the people to spend. So this borrowing will more or less will be more of foreign borrowing, right? It will be more of what? It will be more of foreign borrowing. Now during inflation, what will happen? Sir, government proposes a surplus budget. During the inflation, the government says that we will increase the taxes. Increase in taxes means a higher income. The government expenditure is going to be less because people are already having lots of money available as disposable income. So this has a negative net effect on the aggregate demand, since the leakages exceed the injections and thereby reducing the disposable income and thereby reducing the inflation. Right, so these were the various instruments of fiscal policy, and these are important from examination point of view, right? You can be asked the short notes on these, or you can be asked that what will be the situation that during the recession, what will be how the various instruments of this fiscal policy can work, right? Or during the inflation, how the various instruments of the fiscal policy can help in correcting a particular situation. So these kind of questions can be asked in the examination, right? So one is taxes, another one is government expenditure, then public debt, and then is the government budget. Clear? So in the next lecture, we'll be continuing with the types of fiscal policy. What are the various types of fiscal policy? One is the expansionary fiscal policy, another one is the contractionary fiscal policy. Then we have just small topics, right? We'll be able to complete this chapter in the next, let's say 2 lectures. maximum 2 lectures. In the next 2 lectures, we'll be able to complete this particular chapter, right? So see you guys in the next lecture. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, keep studying, keep sharing. Thank you so much.